Hey everyone, welcome in to the Energy Storage Market Series. Today we're going to be hearing from Humless, but before we dive in here, we're going to wait for a few more people to join in. So just hang tight. We're going to go over a few products that RENVU has to offer as we wait for everyone. Quick background of RENVU and myself. My name is Daniel. I am a sales engineer here at RENVU. RENVU was founded in 2012 and is based in Mountain View, California, close to San Francisco. We do have fulfillment centers on the West and East Coast, as well as Texas. And if you are just jumping in right now, just make sure to hang tight. We haven't started yet. We're just doing a quick background and waiting for more people to jump in. This is being recorded as well, so there will be availability of this in the future if you do have to jump out quick or show up a little bit late. Let's see, our entire sales team has an engineering background, which does allow us to go into depth on projects with our customers, whether it be small residential DIY projects up to those larger commercial projects as well. At RENVU, we don't just sell the product. We do like to assist you with any of those technical questions that you may have and support you during your installation and even commissioning. From our side, we won't actually go out and commission for you, but we can assist you in those realms. We do offer additional services, including the Megawatt Club, which does include free shipping on all of your orders, discounts on engineering services, and permit packages. We do have multiple online tools as well that can assist you in creating your own system design, adding a battery to your system, and even calculating inner row spacing due to shading. We do have financing options as well for larger orders, and this is on a project-by-project basis. All right, we're still waiting for more people to join in here. If you are just joining, don't worry, we haven't started yet. This is being recorded, and if you do have to jump out early or whatnot, this is something that we can send to you if you have something else going on. My name is Daniel, and we are going to be hearing from Humless today. Not quite yet. Sorry about that. A few products that RENVU does have. We're going to start off with Powerfield. Powerfield ground mounts. They are these ballasted like buckets. That's pretty straightforward. It's a pretty unique mounting solution that's weighted down with earth or gravel, making it a very easy installation for large fields without need for large infrastructure. Moving over to the right, we do have Primus wind power turbines that can be paired pretty well with any solar system, Humless system as well. With AC coupled systems, it's a great addition to any solar installation. We have NLX juice box car chargers. This is a 48 amp car charger, and it's the newest residential and commercial EV charger available at RENVU. So if you want to reach out to us at info@renvu.com to look into any of these products, please feel free to do that. Again, that is info@renvu.com. Moving on, we also have a lot of the Enphase IQ7 microinverters at RENVU right now with great pricing with large quantities for bulk purchases as well. We're also carrying Longi 450s and 355 watt modules. We have competitive pricing on these for both residential and commercial projects. And finally, the most exciting thing that RENVU is carrying right now is the Bleakier carport solution. We will be going over Bleakier a little bit more after we hear from Humless. So stay tuned for that, and I'll give you a lot more information on Bleakier. If you're just tuning in, this is being recorded. We haven't started with Humless yet. And we do have previous recordings available as well on the RENVU YouTube channel if you do want to jump over there to see some recordings with Simplify, Fortress Power, and Blue Planet Energy. If you do have any questions about these products, please feel free to ask a question in the chat. and we will get to those questions. Sorry, please don't ask questions in the chat. Please ask questions in the Q&A. We will address the Q&A questions after we hear from Eric at Humless. So don't worry if your question isn't answered right away. We will get all to those. If we don't end up getting to your question, you can also email our sales team at info@renvu.com for more information regarding your question. All right, it looks like we're about to get started here. So I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to Eric with Humless. Eric.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I am the VP over here of Energy Management and Sales at Humless Energy Storage. We're here today to talk about a few different features. One of them will be the Humless Universal. The Humless Universal is a system that AC and DC couples from PV solar simultaneously, and that's based on our residential platform at a 48-volt nominal lithium iron phosphate cell. Later on in this, we'll chat a little bit about the containerized solutions we produce also as well, and that is based more on three-phase, and they're fully containerized solutions that can be in different sizes that can be used for both microgrids and emergency standby power. And I know that's very, very popular in this area where Daniel is right now in California. So we can definitely answer questions at the end of this presentation, but let's just go into a little bit about the Humless Universal as a residential offering and what it does and some of the things it does differently. We're based on a 48-volt platform. We have a UL listed 5 kilowatt block cell. That 5 kilowatt cell can be put in an open loop chemistry in the size that the customer wants. So sizing from as small as 10 kilowatt hours, 20 kilowatt hours, even larger systems in 60, 90, and 120 kilowatt hours. Another great thing about open loop chemistry like this with lithium iron phosphate is you can expand it at a later date, and that's turned out to be more and more important to the consumer, the ability to add storage later. So those are a few exciting features. The Humless Universal also retrofits. I'm sorry, I guess I jumped the gun there. And there's the cell itself, if people can see that on the screen, and I hope everyone can see it. Again, it's UL listed. It's a 4,000 cycle life cell. Very light, rack mounted at 125 pounds. Also completely sealed chemistry, no off-gassing, no toxins. So there's a great example of the cell. We happen to currently be putting it in our very popular power tower. The power tower is just fantastic because it fits rack mounted like that, and it's got a glass cabinet. And I found that energy storage looks can be just as important sometimes when it's in the garage versus in the old days. For example, it was in a plywood battery box in a cabin is a good example. So, but there's the rack mounted cell. There's the UL listing on it, and there's our values for absorption, bulk, and float, and the recharge voltage. So that'll be all sent out with a cell when anyone wants to take a look at that. There is the power tower. So the power tower is fun too because you could start with 10 kilowatt hours in the power tower for certain customers that needed that type of storage, and add a block and make it 15, and add a block and make it 20. And recently we just put another power tower directly alongside another one and jumped it to 40 kilowatt hours of storage. A smaller offering we produce right now is called the 10-4. And when I talk about the 10-4, we're going to talk about some of the things it can do that's different. So 10-4 is standing for this: 2 of the 5K batteries, so 10 kilowatt hours of storage. Then it's with a 4K control. That 4K control is more of a startup package. So let's look at the output on that. At 3,800 watts continuous output, it's made for people that are worried about emergency power supplies, or this is also a great package for a remote cabin. So at 3,800 watts continuous output, you're running the basics: lights, refrigerator, freezers, even a microwave if you're watching your load. Not big loads like for example, this comes up in conversation, an air conditioning unit down in Texas, or a very large water pump. That's not what the 10-4 is designed. It's designed for some family protections, for emergencies, for power outages. Features is one thing that's exciting. So we have generator inputs built in. This is a true 120, 240 volt split phase system. So you would need a 240 volt generator. You can charge from a generator. You can charge from the utility grid. You also can charge from PV solar, both AC and DC coupling. And why the Universal is so popular is it will retrofit to any PV system in America. It all comes down to system sizing. So that means M-phase microinverters, AP systems, Fronius, ABB, SMA, even Solar Edge. We can retrofit those systems and create a source for them when the grid fails and keep your array on, which can be running your critical loads and filling batteries at the same time. Uniquely, we also DC couple. So the DC coupling has other advantages. I'm going to use my house as an example. I have a very small array on my south pitch. It's only 3.4K, and it's an M-phase microinverter system. So that's my AC coupled device. I have a very small west pitch where I couldn't fit much, so it's really only another K. It's 3 panels on the west pitch. That's my DC coupled array. By using those two together, if I have a grid outage, that AC coupled array can still be converting amps and filling batteries, but it also will run loads in sunlight conditions without microcycling the storage unless needed. Meaning if I'm ahead of the load, let's run all that stuff right off the end phase using the software and the intelligent energy management and not microcycle those batteries. Meanwhile, at the exact same time, think of that DC coupled array as just dedicated battery charging. By doing that, I'm also putting amps into the battery with a DC array, and if I'm ahead of the load, I'm putting it in with the M-phase array as well. What that really means to the consumer is a simplicity. We microcycle the storage on a daily basis like that less in an off-grid situation. That's longevity for the customer. If we're doing less cycles at the same time when the sun's out and filling up batteries, it means we roll into nighttime in a more full battery condition. And that is what intelligent energy management's all about. Let's face it, the consumer sometimes doesn't know that a small little standby system like this is a limited resource. The more we can keep the batteries full, the more we can run loads without using and microcycling the batteries, the better for the end user and the consumer. So it's a great little unit. This is the 10.4. It's fantastic for smaller systems. Again, the cabinet itself in the 10.4 can't handle more than 10 kilowatt hours, but you still can add storage next to it with a power tower and turn it into a 15 kilowatt hour or a 20 kilowatt hour at a later date. There's a good example of the wiring diagram. I should have skipped that a second ago. I apologize. You can see the AC and DC coupling there going in. It's a very simple diagram, but it shows how we work. The smart output you're seeing there following the AC coupling over here to the lower right, that's a bidirectional output that we use to control that SMA, that Solar Edge, that M-phase system at grid failure or off grid, by the way. I've got some great M-phase and SMA systems that are completely off the grid, allowing that AC and DC coupling just to be a feature for customers. There's a sample of a system. This is an emergency system in California, actually, for a gentleman who must keep his medicines cold at grid failure. It's just a must-have. It's a lifesaver for him. And there's a system. You'll see how we split it up. The solar AC coupled is with an ABB string inverter there. That's 3.8. That's AC coupled. And it looks like 1.2 is the DC coupled array. So we're probably looking at 3 large panels, DC coupled array directly to the integrated MPPT. This is the larger 8.5. So the larger 8.5 is just more engine and horsepower and output power. So the 8.5 is an example of an inverter control that can do 6,800 watts continuous, 8,500 watts for a half an hour, I believe, and 12,000 watts surge. So that's paired with the power tower completely full at 20 kilowatt hours. Again, it's got generator auto start features built in. Any true microgrid, if we were off grid, for example, you know, here's an example I call the 90-10 rule. 90% of the time, if we properly size a system, even 95% of the time, the system does its job. But you prepare for that 5-10% of the time. I live in snow country here where we build these systems in Utah. And if it snows for 3 days, off-grid situations, batteries can be getting low. The generator feature is just a nice thing to have. Now, it's not necessary. A lot of grid-tied homes don't need it because maybe their power outages are shorter durations most times. But it's a feature that's available, and it's a feature that they can add a generator at a later time. Another thing about this too is the Universal is fully stackable. If they wanted to add another inverter control, we just double the size of the engine. We double the size of the output power. So that's also very common for people that need to run larger loads. That diagram's pretty hard, I'll bet, to see on this web, but they're showing some of the contactors, all the things that are integrated. There's a commercial grade PLC in the system. There's an integrated contactor. There's a generator. There's a transfer switch in the system already for the grid, so we sense grid failure, and for a generator, so we can auto start the generator. Anybody that needs to see that, we can help you provide that diagram. I'm sure that's fairly hard to see. There's an example of a stacked system. That's our residential system that's tied to Solar Edge. What you're seeing there is 60 kilowatt hours, so 20 kilowatt hours in each power tower with 2 stacked 8.5 controls. And I believe that is the generator support on this system too as well. That's that Kohler over there on the left. So a great example of a microgrid. It's a very remote area, and they get significant power outages due to the altitude and the kind of how far out they are on the line. And this has been essential for them to keep certain things protected as well. So another one, this one is a very remote cabin actually. That's a 3 stacked 8.5. So again, when we stack the controls, we're just making the inverter output power a lot larger. So you've got 25K of output there, 3 stacked 8.5s. And we use the larger power towers there. Those are taller when you have the limited space. We need a pretty high ceiling, you know, for a 6-foot plus tower. But it's just a different example. So we'll go over questions later about the residential systems. This is the containerized solution, completely different. So the residential, we're using 48 volts nominal, like I said, because it's just a very popular international voltage, and that's our UL listed cell. When we get to the containerized solutions, we're jumping up to mostly 3-phase. And of course, then we're at a higher voltage. So the 700 volt nominal range for the lithium iron phosphate at this range, and the containers Humless is building right now is 10, 20s, 40s, and the largest one is 6 megawatt hours in a 53-foot container. These again are rack mounted cells. So we use the rack mounted cells to put them all in series to create the voltage we need for the situation. This is a 9540 rated container, completely supplied with HVAC, also fire suppression built in. Why we're seeing more of that popular style of microgrid, I believe, is simplicity. You tie it into switchgear, you drop it on a cement pad, and we're off to the races, folks. And that is something we're seeing more and more of a need. I'm currently sending these to the Caribbean as well as Central America, where just grid costs and grid reliability is a huge factor to the consumer. So there's that. Very soon, again, hopefully you can see some of the cells and specifications there. Anyone that needs to get this, Daniel can definitely provide you specs that you can read in a PDF a little better. But that's, again, how we're putting the racks together, and as voltage, it's just a higher voltage. We have a 40K inverter paired with the system as well. Why that's exciting is it's designed for different 3-phase. So we can be using a tie-in in one place down the road, it's 480 V, but the next place for the next container down the way might be 208 3-phase. And those are all in the settings. We can adjust that for each consumer when it's needed. So I'd like to go over anything, and maybe Daniel can help me out with that, and go over any questions about some options and availability, also some of the system characteristics and specifications. And Daniel, are you there?
Yeah, sorry about that. My mute button was stuck there. Yeah, so yeah, if you guys don't mind writing down those questions, we can get to those here in a few seconds. Give you a few minutes to write those down. While we do that, I am actually going to introduce Bleak here really quick, Eric, and then we can jump into these questions. So yeah, let's move forward here. So anyone who doesn't know about Bleakier yet, Bleakier is a very exciting product that RENVU is carrying because it is a unique solution to a residential carport with its simple and sturdy design and ease of installation for compatibility with solar equipment. The two-car carport can support 24 60-cell modules or 18 72-cell modules. Both configurations do utilize Iron Ridge XR100 rails, and it is also a sealed surface using T-gaskets in between those modules for a waterproofed carport. Bleakier designed this carport to be easy to install, only requiring a pier depth of 2 feet, and it can withstand a 30 pounds per square foot snow load and a 170 mile an hour wind load. These values can be increased on a case-by-case basis. So if you would like to head over to bleakier.com, you can actually find some documentation in the data sheets and the engineering reports that do specify a little bit more about those special wind load cases and snow load cases. If you would also like to contact RENVU, we can also help you design your custom Bleakier carport for your larger wind loads or snow loads if need be. The cool thing, or we'll keep going on here, sorry, the carport does stand 9 feet tall, and it does have a 5-degree tilt angle with a pier-to-pier length of 18 feet on all sides, and it does not matter which direction the cars enter from, meaning you can orient the array to the best solar resource that's available. A decorative mesh can be purchased to hide the wiring on the underside of the array. And there is a commercial option as well that does essentially line up the two-car carports and lines up one next to the other, and will share that column or share that common column in the center. The one thing that is nice about Bleakier is it does come as a kit. So you can purchase just the carport itself with no solar. That is an option. It would come on an 11-foot pallet. You can also pair it with Longi modules and a Humless battery system as well. You could utilize whichever microinverters you wanted. In this case, IQ7 pluses. And if you do purchase a Bleakier carport through RENVU right now, we are including the NLX car charger as a bonus. So if you are interested in that, please contact our sales team at info@renvu.com, and we can give you some more information on that. Bleakier does have an authorized installer program that requires an application and 3 installations. After these steps, if you do install 5 carports per month, and that's going to be tabulated quarterly, you will receive $1,000 per carport installed, as well as customer leads from RENVU, some special pricing agreements, and partner benefits through RENVU. This carport is now available on the RENVU Solar Kit Guide, and this is a quick little run through of that system. If you haven't used it yet, it's pretty cool. It's on the homepage. You can actually go in and design your own system, choosing different modules that are in stock at RENVU. You can also enter in your own panels if you wish. You can actually go in and calculate that system size. If you don't know how to do that, you can change where you're located and choose your type of racking. Here we're selecting the carport system, and then we're going to create our own carport system from here. Going on, you can choose whichever inverters that you would like, and then calculate the battery bank size that you need, or we can actually help you do that. You can enter in all of your appliances here. put in your critical daily usage if you know that off the top of your head, and then go ahead and choose your battery system from here. And then moving forward from that, it'll ask you if you want to add that car charger, and if you want any smart energy monitoring. You can also select the full permitting package as well, and then it will give you a list of all of the components for your system, and you can go ahead and submit that over to our sales team by clicking finish at the end, and our sales engineers will then look at your quote, and you can actually purchase that system from us. If you do have any questions on this, please ask during the Q&A. So go ahead and write those down right now, or you can always email us at info@renvu.com. All right, Eric, let's get into these questions here. So the first question for you, if you're ready, does the 10.4 have an integrated auto transfer switch?
Two transfer switches are built into the 10.4. One is for the grid and one is for a generator feature. But if not using a priority loads panel, you would need to put in a exterior transfer switch due to the fact that we can't backfeed the grid.
Okay. Question from Aaron. What is the amperage limit per 8.5 kW?
So the 8.5, depending on if it's 120 volt or 240, so if it's lined in neutral, it is actually 100 amps, but for 60 seconds. That's the surge. The max you can do at 240 for surge would be 52.
Okay, great. Another question from Aaron. Does the 208 have demand management, time of use arbitrage, and backup capabilities simultaneously?
That is a fantastic question. I do not believe all of it is simultaneous, but I will get you more data on that. Arbitrage is absolutely, load shaving is absolutely, but when you get too deep, I have to do a little research on if I can do all of it at once.
Great. Yeah, Aaron, if you would like to go ahead and email info@renvu.com, we can get you in contact with Eric, or you can email Eric directly. His email is down there at the bottom of the screen right now. All right, moving on. Next question. Will the system be able to function if the grid is down and the batteries are fully drained, but the sun is out and providing power via the PV module array?
That is my absolute favorite question. That is a great question. Okay, let's quickly talk about the positives and negatives of a BMS. The answer is yes. The way we AC and DC couple, we have a feature called blackstarting. And the American market is learning quickly about this. Here's the thing. Any BMS and any lithium system now, BMSs have a positive and negative. A BMS is a great protection. It protects you from overcharging. A BMS is also a great protection in lithium. It prevents you from over discharging the cells and damaging the cells. So the UL listed 5K cell can go all the way down to 90% DOD. Goes 80% DOD all day long. You know, lithium's a workhorse. That's why it's so popular. But if you take it past the 90% DOD, like any lithium cell, the BMS is going to protect that cell and cut it off at 9% is my cutoff in the BMS. And that will shut the system down. So the disadvantage of an AC coupled PV array system like this with batteries is an SMA that's off is off. The Tesla Powerwall, when it's off, it's off. You need to call technical support. We need to jump charge that system. We need a starting point. The same with us. We AC and DC couple. If my M-phase system goes down when the batteries hit a low point, and I don't have a generator, that's another feature for a generator right there, and it's off, we have to shut down and we cannot start that M-phase back up. The advantage of the software and the Universal is huge for this reason. When the DC coupled array starts to sense voltage the next morning, or when the sun comes back out, it's going to harvest some of that. It's going to harvest some of that, and it's going to black start. So we're very proud of that. I may not have mentioned the black starting feature is so important. All this software comes from a brilliant microgrid expert who's been building these systems in South Africa for a decade plus. And the reason our thinking is a little different is that thinking from South Africa was don't rely on the grid. The grid is unstable and the grid has constant rolling blackouts. And American thinking is a little different than that, and it's biting us now as our grid infrastructure gets older. We based everything on the back end of the grid. The Humless Universal system and the software is all based on the front end of an inverter, which gives us some advantages. So yes, we will blackstart. That is a big part of the DC coupled array, which can be very small, by the way. 2 panels, 4 panels, up to a 4K array of DC coupled in each Humless Universal. So that's all integrated. But it's a fantastic question. Thank you.
Great. All right. Next question. Are your residential ESS products made in the US or China?
Well, we milled the Humless Universal here in Utah. We're based outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. The real world we live in, sadly, all lithium cells are pretty much 96% manufactured in China. We do produce the cell and purchase cells that are wrapped, and then we finish the universal system here in Utah. So the universal is indeed, I can't say completely, but mostly built in Utah, but we do import the cell.
Great. All right. I got a pretty specific question here from Donald. I'm going to give it to you here if you want him to email this to you as well, Eric. This is from Donald Berg. Do you offer batteries as part of a solar PV PPA? Specifically a small system serving about 18 low-income apartments, looking at around a 45,000 kWh annual consumption.
We could definitely offer batteries for that. That would take some discussion, and there's certain rules, involved with every PPA. But if we want to reach out to my email, that is definitely something we do. We do. So I guess a factor we haven't discussed also is the universal 5K. I'm sorry, the 5K cell is a drop-in replacement. It is in many, many homes and cabins where it's not paired with the universal, but it's been replacement cells for an older lead acid system in a cabin up in the mountains where they were sick of replacing, short cycle life lead acid batteries, and they went with a 10-year warranted cell. So there are a lot of options using that cell, but I'd love to discuss it. And if you want to reach out to me, email, we'll see what the options available are.
Great. Next question from Russell. This is regarding bleak year. So I'll take this one, but do AHJs consider bleak year carport to be a building and subject to rapid shutdown requirements? Russell, that's a great question. Bleak year carports is not considered a building. It is a auxiliary structure, carport, and is not habitable. It is not subject to rapid shutdown requirements. This is subject to where the carport is directly installed. So if you want to email us at info@renvu.com, I can give you a little bit more information regarding rapid shutdown requirements, but the short answer is no, it is not subject to rapid shutdown requirements. Another question for bleak year from Gary. How much loss of efficiency does the 5-degree tilt cause at 38 degrees north? Gary, that's a great question as well. So the loss of efficiency at 38 degrees north with a 5-degree tilt, that's pretty specific, but essentially you're going to look at a little bit of, I wouldn't say you're really losing efficiency. You're just, not pointing that module directly at 38 degrees. Now that's going to be for the entire year. That 5-degree tilt is actually going to be very beneficial during the summer months when that solar resource is substantial compared to those winter months when the sun is much further down in the sky. So it is pretty negligible. But if you also want to contact us as well, we can give you some more information for your output of that system specifically for your area, and we can help you through that. All right, next question from Aaron. I'm wondering how many of the 8.5s I need to interrupt a main feed residentially.
To interrupt a main feed. I'm not sure I have my head wrapped around that question. What do you mean interrupt a main feed? To offset or control the main feed? Can we be a little more specific there?
All right, we'll come back to that one here, Aaron. If you want to, if you're still on, if you want to clarify a little bit, we'll get back to your question here in a second. Next question: is there a built-in bypass if for some reason the unit malfunctions and needs to bypass the inverter and run the dedicated loads panel from the grid?
Another fantastic question. The answer to that is yes. There is a bypass breaker built into the system. We can send that over in the spec sheet. That bypass breaker is for that exact purpose. Let's admit that certain components in any system like this can fail. Obviously, you want to keep failure rates to an absolute minimum. But if an inverter were to fail, if an inverter were to get too hard of a surge and fail, we can hit the bypass and pull the inverter out. The system is still functioning through the grid and flowing. Here's another example of that. I helped a great customer of mine who's an older gentleman shut down his cabin with a new system this year. We wanted to protect the batteries at a high altitude. So we insulated everything, made sure the batteries were fully charged, shut the system completely off with the bypass on now. And now the K can still go up to the cabin, and while the batteries are, put away for the winter, the generator can be turned on and run the cabin completely through the bypass. So the answer is yes, and it is a fantastic question.
Great. All right, moving on to the next question from Vincent. For off-grid use, what is the no-load power consumption of the 10.4?
That would be 40 watts with no load, idle consumption.
Great. All right, looks like another question from Donald here. Will these batteries continually top off a charge with AC coupled, or do the batteries need to be depleted before batteries begin charging?
Batteries will drop to the recharge voltage that can be changed, but the settings are in that data sheet. In grid on situations, as soon as the batteries start to fill up, they basically treat the AC coupled device like a pass-through, and it flows over the top. Let's pretend it's more advanced than that, but over the top of the terminals and continues on doing exactly what a grid-tied system will do. Off-grid is a different situation. If the batteries hit a full capacity, we are going to shift out that AC coupled inverter because we want to control it until the battery voltage drops to recharge voltage again, and then we'll bring that AC coupled device back in.
Great. Question from Frank. Does the inverter provide frequency shift power curtailment for AC coupling?
That was the exact same answer. Yes, it does. Yes. We also work a little differently for a non-frequency shifting device. So we still control them, but we control them differently. This goes down into system sizing, but basically a solar edge or an older N-phase system like mine is considered a non-frequency shifting device, and we turn them off and on a little differently. We still do it, but the key there is system sizing. And let's do a quick example. If I have an 8.5 controller paired with 20 kilowatt hours of storage, I could have a 6K array of SMA, 7, 8, even up to 8.5K array of SMA, and then another array that's DC coupled. If it's a non-frequency shifting device like Solar Edge, it's the way it comes back on. It hits me with an inrush of current all at once. The array size just needs to be a little smaller. So we call it 80% of the one-to-one relationship. The SMA could be the 8.5. So SMA could be all the way up to 8.5, but we'll use Solar Edge at 80% of that 8.5, which means it just needs to be a smaller array like 6.8, 6.6, 6.4, and down from there.
Great. Another question, what would be the calendar life of the battery storage? What is the energy retention at the end of the period?
So we're given a 10-year 4,000 cycle warranty for these batteries. We're pretty proud of how the cell is performing. It is performing like a champion. The real world of lithium is right now, nobody knows really. I mean, there's no lithium system that's been in place for more than 25 years yet, and there's a lot of talk about 30-year systems. We know the 10-year warranty is solid. We know the 4,000 cycle is solid. It's the little things, the little parts, the MOSFETs that and batteries will eventually wear out. Depending on depth of discharge, you could get 6,000 cycles. You could go 12, 14 years, depending on how you DOD it. But at 10 years, we're expecting the battery to still be doing 80% performance of its original capacity.
Great. All right, we have a bleakier question here from Eric. Do you have any information with zoning permits with bleak here? Yes, we do have information regarding that. If you would also like to give us an email at info@renvu.com, we can provide you with a little bit more specific information regarding your area and zoning. Also, we can also reach out to your AHJ and figure out if this is something that is very specific to your area. So if you would like to go ahead and send us an email, we can go ahead and answer that for you, Eric. And this looks like a pretty good few more questions here. One from Gary. Why choose the Humless system over other hybrid inverter systems?
We are getting the good questions today. That one's kind of my favorite. Okay. There's a lot of reasons. There's differences in all systems, and I do not disparage other systems, but let's just look at limitations. A popular new one is Generac bought the Pica system. It's a very good system. I happen to think I have a better cell, but it's a good system. But Generac only retrofits to, guess what? Their optimizer in Generac. And in an older system, installers really aren't too keen, nor is the homeowner, to pay the labor to pull panels, remove an existing M-phase system, put in a completely different DC optimizer for the Generac, and put panels back down. So there's something there. The Humless system will retrofit to any grid-tied inverter currently made in America. So that's all the microinverters. That's the Fronius, SMAs, ABBs of the world, Solar Edge as well. Retrofitting like that is a huge advantage. I also like the modular features that Humless offers. We can expand at a later date. We can add storage at a later date. We can stack another inverter control at a later date. So that stacking ability seems to be more important than it used to be. I think the world has changed enough here where we're starting to doubt the grid a little more than we used to. Again, there's also generators auto start features completely built in. This is all integrated into the system already. Also, as well as the AC and DC coupling. Maybe we should talk about that a little bit more. When we AC and DC couple, we can again go back to my house. If I'm home and the grid's out and I've got a load of say 1800 watts because I'm running a few things and my M phase is producing more than that, the software and the intelligent energy management is going to take that flow of energy from the M phase and use it all to run on my loads, and any access will be converted to amps and pushed to the battery. Meanwhile, my small DC array is doing the same job. The more we do that, the more that we provide that customer that security, the more we run loads without microcycling cells, means the system works less hard. That's a longevity thing for the consumer. The batteries microcycle less, they last longer, they're used less. If they're microcycle less all day like that, they go into nighttime in a more full battery condition. Compare that to the old days or internationally, which is done all over the world. A DC coupled system just takes power off a panel, sends it down to that charge controller. The charge controller dumps amps into a battery, and the inverter sucks that juice out of the battery. That's a one-way stream of power. We do that. That's the DC coupled array. Doing it intelligently through the software by AC and DC coupling is a benefit. And it's really that simple. It lets systems work less hard. It lets batteries cycle less and provide longevity. So those are important considerations. The other one is toughness and robustness. Is anyone can build an energy storage system now in their garage. It's who's building the systems that last the longest. Which ones are the smart ones? Which ones are more efficient? And that's something that we've done and tested from the Congo and Dubai and South Africa and here in the United States. Another example is I have a working system that's bounced all over America in a transit Mercedes van. So I constantly think about that system bouncing around the roads and highways, and it's still functioning like a champion. We've tested everything: Xantrex, Delta, the Fronius of the world, the Victrons, the Schneiders, and that test station is just made us try to be better at all the time. So that's a long answer. I apologize, but there's a few different features that just give us an advantage.
And no worries for the long answer there, Eric. Got some more questions here. One from Ronald. This is for RENVU. Is your equipment prices for installers set up as at wholesale or retail? If wholesale, what is all required for that account? Ronald, so initially, we do need to see your resale certificate for wholesale. So you can set up an account through renvu.com and then get in contact with our sales team, and we will be able to update your account from there after we do verify that information from you. So you can also go ahead and send an email over to info@renvu.com, and we can help you out with that. Another question from Donald. This is a great question. How does Humless provide demand reduction?
We provide demand reduction a little differently, and that's load shaving via amps. So in the settings, there's all kinds of different settings. You can block the grid from grid charging. You can block grid charging at certain times of the day, but we'll load shave and arbitrage by amps. And it just turns out to us to be smarter that way. So the customer can change it depending perhaps on time of year or what they want to accomplish. The example would be, if the home begins to pull over 10 amps and it's set at 10 amps, we'll use the DC bus, selling off the DC bus, which is selling off the battery, to go anything above that amperage. If it was winter time and I live in snow country, perhaps I want to lower that. I'm getting less sun and maybe my panels aren't producing as much in the snow. I can lower that setting. You can raise that setting. If there's certain times of the day where you're actually making a little money to feed the grid, raise that setting all the way to its max amperage cell. Sell 20 amps as soon as you hit a setting. That means if the home goes above 5 amps, you start selling. So we base it all on cell rate and amperage.
Great. Let's see here. Looks like that's going to be the end of our questions here. Mike, I do see that you did tune in late to the webinar. There will be a recording of this webinar available. If you want to go ahead and email us, we can go ahead and send you that recording when it does become available. Everyone also who has signed up will receive that recording as well. Eric, do you have anything else you'd like to talk about with Humless before we wrap this thing up?
No, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. I appreciate the questions. There's some good questions there. Any questions that continue on? There are no bad questions, folks. There really aren't. This is new, exciting stuff for everyone in America, and it's been a pretty fun ride. You can reach us at any time at humless.com. My email also, I think, is on the page, but it's Eric, E-R-I-C, at humless.com, and I'll gladly help any questions. Thanks for joining us. It was a pleasure.
Great. Thanks so much, Eric. Thanks so much for everyone else for joining. Once again, this is being recorded, and if you do have any other questions, as Eric said, feel free to email us and reach out. Thanks for joining. Have a good rest of your day, guys.
Have a good day.